Well, you know what, just to be safe thing, you did end up saving your ass later. Before we dig into it, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Story 1. Not my ass, but my mom's. She and I were home alone and I was getting ready to go to a party. I came upstairs and found her with a carbon monoxide detector in pieces on the coffee table. She said it was beeping, and apparently once years ago in our last house one was malfunctioning and giving a false alarm. So I guess she just assumed it was happening again. I shrugged it off and continued getting ready. I was about to leave, but something was nagging at me. She was insisting it was fine. After some arguing with her, I said, "No, we're calling the fire department." So I did. They came and the levels of carbon monoxide were so high in the basement they said anyone sleeping down there would be dead already. Our cats were vomiting from the poisoning and we didn't realize. I guess the filter on the furnace was so clogged it was pumping out carbon monoxide. One of the firefighters pulled me aside and said if I hadn't called, I likely would have come home to my mom dead in her bed. Story 2. Not my ass, but I was getting ready for school whilst mum was vomiting in the bathroom. She said it was just a stomach bug and to just go to school, but mentioned her arm hurt. Something didn't sit right, so I called the ambulance from downstairs. They arrived and took her into the ambulance. She then proceeded to have 3 cardiac arrests and needed defibrillated each time. A double bypass later and she was up and about within a month. Paramedics told me she would have died 5 minutes after I left if I hadn't called. Story 3. Had some weird achy symptoms and went to the doctor even though I figured I was probably overreacting. Turns out I had cancer. Story 4. Putting on me one of my work shoes in the hotel, safe along with my valuables, literally, it stopped me in my tracks from forgetting my wallet and passport in a different country. Story 5. Was delivering pizza in a sketchy block of town late at night, huge apartment complex with multiple buildings. Walking up to the front door, I noticed a couple guys wearing dark clothing, about 100 behind me, walking in my direction. Delivery was on the 2nd floor and by the time I reached her door I heard the main door of the apartment complex open and close. She used a CC for the order and tipped in cash. So when I was putting the receipt into my bag where I kept my cash, I actually pulled the rest of the cash out and stuffed it into my inner jacket pocket just to be safe, leaving just the change I had that night in the bag. Started to head down the stairs back out to my car and 2 guys jumped out from behind the stairs and the one had a gun pointed at me and told me to give them the money. I quickly handed them my bag filled with quarters and they took off towards the back entrance of the apartment complex. I never ran so fast in my life back to my car. I wanted to make sure I was as far away as possible before they realized they robbed me of $3, 50 in quarters. Story 6. $5 breakage insurance on a rental surfboard broke the fricka clean in half in my first 10 minutes. Story 7. My friend and his wife were having their first child. They had gotten a big packet of information and paperwork to fill out before the due date. To make things easier, there were also brochures for genetic testing and other things that could be done, and one of the things was about saving the cord blood. My friend said that he looked at the front of the brochure, and his wife asked if they should do it. It is not cheap, a couple $1,000s to save it and a few hundred a year after that, and my friend said yes. Their daughter was born later that year. 3 years after her birthday had a boy, and he was born with an immune disorder, no white cells, and his big sisters. Cord blood and stem cells were used as a treatment. Story 8. Lived in Baltimore at the time, pulled up outside my place after getting off a late shift and had to get a backpack out of my trunk. Before going in, I noticed a group of teenage kids hanging out on the corner and thought nope. Called my roommate to come watch me walk to the door. About 10 minutes later, a girl comes running down the street bleeding, saying she got jumped by the group of kids for no reason. Stay alert out there, y'all. Story 9. My dad lost his glasses once. He was going to just use his old prescription, but last minute decided to just go to the optometrist anyway in case something changed. Turns out he had a tear in his retina and was booked for surgery within 24 hours. It was bad enough, they said. He probably would have gone blind really soon had they not caught it when, then did. Story 10. Was watching my toddler nephew and he'd found a metal straw somewhere in the house and started playing with it. He was just tapping stuff and waving it around, but I just read a story on Reddit about a woman who got completely fricked up by a metal straw when she fell and it impaled her face. So I took the metal one from nephew and gave him a soft, squishy silicone one to play with instead. I'm not exaggerating when I say less than 5 minutes later he fell, like toddlers do, and I saw the silicone straw all smushed into his cheek. I had to just sit for a while after that lol. Story 11. Not me bit. A coworker was trying to separate some railroad ties with a crowbar as part of his yard work for the day, and when it popped, a nail flew and embedded itself in one of the lenses of his safety glasses. He threw them because he had them for work. He keeps them on his desk as a reminder. PPE is not just for the workplace, folks. Story 12. Save the GPS location of my vehicle on Google Maps. Before exploring a national forest with a road trip buddy, we grabbed some fishing poles and head out towards the nearest water location on our map to hopefully catch a couple fish. Turns out it was a swamp, not a lake, and we got so incredibly turned around. It could have ended very badly. We really didn't go that far in from where we parked, but somehow ended up on the other side of the swamp without realizing it. Drizzling rain, mosquitoes, buried tracks, and the sun started going down before we found the car. Without the GPS coordinates saved, it would have been a cold, wet night in the woods at a minimum, and more than likely a search and rescue required situation. Story 13. I dropped my high school girlfriend off. Then for some reason I locked the passenger door. Not 10 minutes later I was stopped at a red light and some scummy looking dude tried to open up the door. I have no idea why I locked that door after she got out. I really didn't have a habit of that. No idea what would have happened if that guy got in my truck. Story 14. I had a female patient coming for our only 131 therapy. Patient must be not pregnant, and to make sure we do a blood test 1 day prior to dosing. I checked the results on screen, that was negative. I printed it out and put it in a patient file just in case. Although we went paperless years earlier, after giving her radiation safety instructions and discharging her, she came a couple of days saying that she was late. The doctor inserted another pregnancy blood test and came out positive. The lab technician went to the previous negative blood test and changed ID to positive. Haven't I printed the test? It would look like I dosed the patient while pregnant and could get fired. Staff before this incident used to make fun of me being paranoid. After this incident, everyone started printing the results because a lot of people asked, and to answer their questions, I reported it to the head of department. He immediately involved the medical physics department and they calculated the dose to the fetus and found out she had to abort because the baby will be severely mutated. So they involved the OB again also. Last thing, I knew that a huge investigation was carried out and the patient filed an official complaint. I don't know what happened later. Everything completely changed. Policies and procedures / hospital's information system / quality department was established / risk management department was established, etc. That was back in the beginning of 2007. The system was installed in the end of 2006. That was the first time anyone used an electronic system ET app were. I wrote the reply and went to sleep and woke up never thinking that this would blow up. Well, thank you everyone for upvoting and thank you kind stranger for the award. Thanks for everyone who wished me a happy cake day. You all made my day. Edit 3. That story happened in Mina, Middle East and North Africa. Story 15. Normally I'm pretty impressionable and cave to peer pressure, but this one time when I was younger, I was hiding with my friends and a couple of older high school guys I'd only met that day. The girls were all fawning over them, but I could tell they were idiots. When they all wanted to go for a drive with the guys, I thought, nah, I don't trust these guys and I think it's best I just call my parents and go home. I got a call the next morning from one of the girls who was passenger. One of the high school boys was driving. They did a serious crash and one of the girls wasn't wearing her seatbelt and hit her head on the dash and was in a coma for 6 months. She was in intensive care and rehabilitation for years. Still can't believe of all the days I decided not to go with the floor. It probably saved my life. Terribly sad about my friend. We were really close but she never came right and her personality changed. I still wonder how successful she might have been and if we'd still be friends if that hadn't happened to her. Really sad. Story 16. Snow chains at the bottom of the mountain. A bunch of cows passed me on a clear road on the way up, with several warnings. All the way up I saw a local throwing on chains. With no snow in the area, I decided to be safe and put them on. 30 minutes later I was in one of the worst snow driving conditions I've ever seen, whiteout conditions in a snowstorm that eventually resulted in a complete shutdown of the roads. I passed car crash after car crash with just enough traction to feel somewhat comfortable, moving 15 miles an hour. Anyone heading to Tahoe needs chains, and chains that fit. Don't frick around. I don't care if you have a 4-wheel drive. Driving through Tahoe and Mammoth during snowstorms is no joke. Literally sunny, with no clouds to blinding white darkness in an hour. Edit one more thing, if you find yourself near Heavenly and Siri sends you to a snowed over hill that feels too steep, turn around. Unless you have the right setup, you aren't gonna make it. Snow chains or not, you will slide. Just take the Harris Gondola if it's that bad. If you don't already have your own gear, try another resort. Heavenly is uniquely bad for rentals and beginners in general. Story 17. Backing up computer files onto an external drive on a regular basis. Power goes out one afternoon and I was the only one not profusely sweating. Story 18. I forwarded an email to my non-work address so that after I left and anonymously reported my employer to the state, I couldn't get stuck with the blame for crap. Story 19. One day I was attempting to make karaoke for the first time, a kind of Filipino fried mochi, and after I popped them in the oil, I settled in and watched them carefully. I never wear an apron whilst cooking, but for some reason I figured why not this time, and as soon as I stepped out of range of the fryer, they all exploded. Turns out, karaoke can form an impermeable shell when fried, so pressure built up inside until they popped and sprayed hot oil all over the kitchen. Of course, I was safely away, reaching for an apron, and was completely dumbfounded, made sure to punch some holes in all subsequent batches. Of course, once I cleaned the kitchen, I ate them, and they were delicious. 10/10 highly recommend. Edit for the curious, https://panosanpinoy.com or karaoke recipe / https://panosanpinoy.com or karaoke recipe / Pro tip, don't let them explode.